The XC40 was a massive turning point for Volvo. For years, its estate cars, SUVs and saloons had been fighting for the affection of buyers with the likes of BMW, Mercedes and Audi. But the problem was for Volvo, most of those cars were still and also ran in buyers' minds. But this car was different. Even in the face of desirable small SUV rivals such as the Audi Q3, BMW X1 and Mercedes-Benz GLA, the Volvo XC40 was the one that buyers wanted. But why, and how has the XC40 changed itself to keep on top of the pile? That's what we'll be looking at over the course of the next few minutes. But before we get started, why not take the opportunity to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll find lots more CarGurus UK review videos. Another top tip, also click on the bell icon because this will turn on notifications, meaning you'll always be informed automatically whenever a new video goes live on the channel. Why has the XC40 struck such a chord with buyers? Well, part of that is down to the unconventional but sophisticated Scandinavian style. It takes all of its characterful touches of the larger SUVs and puts them into this one. So for example, we've got these T-shaped Thor's hammer signatures in the headlights, and all those characterful touches are put into a easier to manage, smaller, not to mention more affordable package. Style is a big part of why people love cars like this. It's easy to argue that among small prestige SUVs, the XC40 is the most stylish of the bunch. The precise look of your XC40 will depend on the trim you go for, because each one gets varying combinations of chrome and gloss black exterior elements. But all XC40s look sharp. Another reason why people love SUVs is because they combine that style with family-friendly practicality. And the Volvo XC40's boot has got some camera equipment in it at the moment, but I'm sure most families will be transporting around the weekly shop or perhaps a pushchair, something like that. The space is very usable and it's a good square space, and there's no load lip, which makes loading bulky items in and out a lot easier. And then most Volvo XC40s have an enormous storage space underneath the boot floor, but not this one, and we'll explain why in a minute. The Volvo is a little behind its rivals for versatility though. The folding rear seats are split 60-40, which doesn't give you as many options as the 40-20-40 arrangement found in some competitors, and the back seats don't slide and recline like they do in rivals either. However, the rear seats themselves are surrounded by lots and lots of space. So if you're tall, I'm only 5'4.5", but if you are tall, you will find that there is plenty of headroom and legroom to really stretch out. And it's not quite as big as some of its rivals. However, you'd have to be really, really fussy with a tape measure to work that out because it is spacious. And then it's also wide enough to fit 3 people side by side. And this middle seat is actually quite comfy, but there is nowhere to put your feet. So you have to straddle this big tunnel in the middle or try and squeeze your feet into one footwell. The thing that really strikes you about the interior, especially up front, is that it's just as stylish as the outside, maybe even more so. You've got some really cool design touches, such as these long, narrow air vents, and there's some finishes and pieces that just spice things up and give it a bit of variety. Again, the precise nature of these will vary according to which trim you choose, but they all look good and most of the cabin materials are of a high standard. All XC40s have this 12.3-inch digital screen instead of conventional instrument dials, and it can be configured to show all sorts of different information, including your sat-nav instructions. All versions have this 9-inch central infotainment touchscreen. There are some shortcut buttons down here, but most of the functions are operated through this screen. That's all very well if you're a fan of the pinch and swipe commands that you use on your smartphone, but the fact that when you're driving, delivering these commands is a bit too distracting. Even changing the temperature of the aircon involves all sorts of tapping and swiping. The screen can be a bit slow to respond as well. Otherwise, life behind the wheel of the Volvo XC40 is pretty good. You do get that elevated SUV driving position, which is actually higher than some of its rivals, and that also gives you a really great commanding view of the road. The seats, well, they're very comfy and supportive, and there's plenty of adjustment. So this one is electric and I haven't got the ignition on at the moment, but trust me, they adjust really easily. And then the steering wheel also has reach and rake, so you should be able to get a really comfy driving position. However, your rear view isn't so great because the car's shoulder line rises at the back of the car, making the rear windows small. Good job then that all models come with rear parking sensors as standard. It's almost time to get the Volvo XC40 on the road, but before we do, we're going to give you 5 things you need to know, and number 1 is the trim levels available. Even the entry-level Momentum trim is well stocked with alloy wheels, automatic lights and wipers, cruise control, powered windows, climate control and the full infotainment system. Although on all trims you have to pay extra for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is uncharacteristically mean. Our design trim gets some visual upgrades inside and out, multicoloured ambient lighting and part leather upholstery, while Inscription trim gets more visual upgrades plus front parking sensors and a reversing camera. Each trim is also available with a Pro Pack that adds heating for your front seats, windscreen and washer nozzles, and some form of electric seat adjustment. Number 2, engines. Volvo has discontinued diesel in the XC40, so the petrols are the T2 and T3. They are 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engines with either 127 brake horsepower or 161 brake horsepower. And the B4 and B5 are 2 litre 4-cylinder mild hybrid units with 194 brake horsepower or 247. Number 3, Volvo is embracing electrification, and unusually the XC40 is available with 2 plug-in hybrid powertrains. The T4 Recharge and T5 Recharge, as they're known, basically take the smaller petrol engine in various states of tune and add an electric motor and a battery pack for up to 27 miles of electric-only running. You can also have a fully electric version that'll do up to 257 miles on a charge. Number 4, prices. At the time of making this video, the most affordable version was the T2, which comes in at $25,420. Most of the other versions will cost between $30,000 and $40,000, apart from the T5 plug-in hybrid, which is just above that. But the most expensive is the fully electric version, which is just shy of £60,000. And number 5, when talking about Volvo, we have to speak safety, and the XC40 continues this tradition in style. It'd take us half the day to list all the safety measures provided, so just be content in the knowledge that it's got all the safety kit you can think of, a few bits you probably can't, and all the very latest stuff. And just like every other Volvo model tested since 2001, the XC40 has achieved the full 5 stars in Euro NCAP crash tests. Right, I think we've been stationary long enough. It's time to get those wheels moving. The car we're driving today is the T5 Recharge plug-in hybrid, which is the more powerful out of the 2 hybrids. And remember we said earlier about the boot space underneath the boot floor? Well, that storage isn't available in this car because that's where the batteries are kept. And those batteries power an 81 horsepower electric motor, which is teamed up with a 178 brake horsepower petrol motor. According to official figures, this makes the car capable of up to 135 miles per gallon and 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 7.3 seconds. That's a pretty tempting mix. What does that mean in the real world? Well, it's a laboratory figure, so achieving it in the real world is nigh on impossible, and there are lots of factors that affect it, such as how you drive the car, how often you charge it, and how often you need to call upon the petrol engine for assistance. If you manage to do most of your driving on electric power alone, your running costs will be tiny. If, however, you need to call upon the petrol engine quite often, it will prove quite thirsty. So make sure you do a lot of small journeys which suit a plug-in hybrid. And how does that drivetrain feel in practice? Well, if you keep your throttle inputs fairly gentle and providing you've got sufficient charge, then most of your low-speed progress can be made on the electric motor alone, meaning almost silent running and a decent, if not outstanding, level of acceleration. You have to press the throttle pedal quite hard to control the petrol engine into life, and once you do, the combination of those 2 power sources makes for some serious pace. So whether you're pulling away from a standstill or accelerating and overtaking on the motorway, you've got the power there if you want to use it. Even better, the petrol engine stays reasonably smooth and quiet as it revs, and it's really smooth in cutting in and out. It really suits the car, and for us, this is the XC40's best powertrain. This particular XC40 isn't perfect to drive in other ways. Like Volvo's other plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, you have to shove the brake pedal quite hard to get it to slow down. And it's quite difficult to modulate as well. It has a rather detached feeling about it. The ride in this particular car isn't ideal either. First of all, it's an R-Design model which comes with a slightly stiffer suspension than the rest of the range to make it feel sportier at the expense of a little bit of comfort. What's more, that suspension doesn't seem to cope particularly well with the considerable added weight of the hybrid tech, meaning the suspension finds it harder to do its job. So while most XC40s ride quite comfortably, this one jitters and jolts a bit more on craggy surfaces. It's not uncomfortable, but it's not as sophisticated as it could be, and nor, despite the R-Design badging, does it feel that sporty. It may not be a true driver's car, but with a tempting mix of style, practicality, quality and desirability, it's easy to see why the Volvo XC40 is such a hit with buyers. We hope you enjoyed this review of the Volvo XC40, and we'd love to know if you agree with our verdict, so please do tell us in the comments below. Please feel free to like and subscribe as well, because you'll find plenty more new and used car reviews on the CarGurus UK YouTube channel. And to find a great deal from a top-rated dealer on your next car, head over to cargurus.co.uk.